I was just having a fascinating conversation about gameplay loops and adding flying to our game, so I thought I'd take a look at our gameplay loop and talk about how to make them. So finding resources in our game is really important. You find resources like these berries here, you would explore different islands to find them, and then you would give those to the jelly. The jelly would then consume those resources, like eat them, and then you would need to find more resources. But you wouldn't go straight out necessarily and do this, although you could. It is a loop. You can do it again and again. You would actually go to the next step. You would give the jelly dew to the island heart. Now, what is jelly dew? Jelly dew is a little byproduct of the jelly. Whenever you make the jelly and happy by nurturing it, it produces jelly dew. This jelly dew then falls on the ground and you can pick it up and put it in the island heart, and it gives an island heart power. The power of the island heart is what makes the sky islands in our game float. So the more power you give it, the more area you can build, and it actually gives you blocks. Like blocks come out of it when you increase its size, and you use those blocks to build bridges to new islands. You then go to those islands and you find new resources to which you nurture the jelly. So a good gameplay loop has all of its features going through this right here. It is, you got the second by second loop right here. This is what you're doing second by second. And then when you're extending that loop, you're going out here and you're adding functions to that loop. Give jelly dew to the island heart. Use blocks to build to new islands, right? Now, just imagine for a second that you were to add flying into this game, right? What would happen is this step would become totally irrelevant. And that would also make this step kind of irrelevant, right? The reason is, and really this step too, like why do you need any of that if you can just fly? You nurture the jelly and then you fly, right? So that's what you need to think about when adding features to a particular game. But when you're coming up with a game in the first place, you need to think about doing everything around a very basic gameplay loop. What is the game about? In our case, that is these jellies. That's what the game is about, right? And you know, what are you doing in the game? Mostly, you're nurturing the jellies. You're making them happy. That's basically what the game is about. You want to design around that. You want to design to complement that. And all of the future design should complement that and bring people back to what's important. And in our game, that's the jelly. And it makes sense that it's point two, right? Everything is in service of this right here. Everything is in service of this right here. This is what makes compassion the centerpiece of our game. So whenever you design a game, you want to have what is the game about, and you want everything to come back to that point and find something fun to make the game about, and then add to it little by little in loops. So let's say I were to add something else to this gameplay loop. How would I do that, right? I would look at an extra step. So how can I create an extra step in this? Find resources, nurture jelly. I'm coming up with this on the top of my head. Give jelly dew to the island heart. Use blocks to build to new islands. Maybe, you know, I would, if I were to extend this, I would go over here and say that find special islands to get special technology that allows you to extend your island heart further. Now that kind of brings people back to the island heart, but you get the point. You want to loop back in, you know, to those upgrades and to that whole system that makes it interesting. So loop back in constantly and make it part of a gameplay loop. That's what you want to think about when you're growing things. So in general, you have a minute by minute, then you have maybe you could say half an hour by half an hour. You don't want to probably do hour by hour, and then you want to say what is the bigger game in the whole. Now, many games that you're going to be making as an indie is not going to have this bigger loop. You're just going to have this and this. And let's say, I just went back here. Let's say you wanted to add something to the game. What you want to do is you want to just make these bits interesting. You know what I mean? You don't want to go out and make a massive, convoluted, complicated gameplay loop. That'll get to being too much.